That's like the main piece of feedback that any female comedian will get, which is women aren't funny. Women have never been funny, will never be funny. And I just have to remember it's just like an incel in his basement commenting that, you know what I mean? I'm like, and how funny are you, Chad, in your mom's basement? You know, like you don't seem like a blast either. But yeah, no, I think being a woman, it's hard. In the beginning when I was like doing it and I was drinking and I was partying and I was like kind of treating it different, I was doing it wrong, and guys will take advantage of like a sloppy girl at the party, you know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. But when I came back and I was sober and I was married, it was so much better, because it was like, if you don't like my comedy, we don't have to talk, you know what I mean? There's no like, you're not hitting on me, you're not going to get something out of me. So yeah, guys, you know, more earlier, like when I started in 2013 or 2012, guys were worse, but now it's like they're my peers and we have like mutual respect for each other. But yeah, still not a ton of favors are being done. So
that makes sense. What was like your journey to getting sober? Are you still sober?
Yeah, I'm still sober. So I was just an alcoholic my whole life. It was like kind of the crux of my relationship with my mom, right? Like so my dad drinks a lot, you know, and my mom called him an alcoholic, and she always just said like, you're going to be an alcoholic just like your dad. You know, that was like the thing. And so because my mom and I didn't get along, I drank at my mom. Like when I first started drinking, I was like, I'll fucking show you an alcoholic, you know? So I was drinking at her, like to spite her, because she was such a kind of negative force in my life. And then I also liked it. I also really enjoyed it. And I, you know, partied for years. And then when I got to LA, it really changed. Like I graduated Marquette in 2011 and I moved out here right afterwards. And you know, drinking in Milwaukee is just drinking. Like, sure, people are like maybe doing coke here and there, but I was like, cocaine's for losers. Like, this is, you know, whatever. And then when I got to LA, it was like Molly, cocaine. Like, it became a more intense party with like lower lows. Like, the lows got way, way lower.
That's
like,
a lot different than just drinking.
Yes, it's way different. And I do think it rewired my brain, because I don't know that I was ever depressed when I was just drinking, but I know that when I started doing hard drugs, I like found it's like living in a house your whole life and not realizing there's a basement. And then once I went down there, I'm like, you can never unknow that it's down there, you know? I was doing this thing with my therapist where she's like, let's see if you're in control of your drinking, you know? She's like, you know, every day when you wake up, decide in the morning whether you're going to drink or not. And she's like, and it doesn't matter. Like, you can, you know, wake up on a Wednesday and say, I'm going to drink today. And that's it. You can drink that day. She's like, but if you wake up and say, I'm not going to drink today, just make sure you don't drink that day. And I remember, so that was the seed that was planted, because it was probably like about a month before my wedding. And it was like a Wednesday, and I woke up and I was like, I'm not going to drink today. And then I was like at lunch with my ex-husband, and before I knew it, I was on my second beer, before I even realized that I had made a pact with myself. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So that was kind of like the thing. And then, you know, my mom passed, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get drunk at her funeral. Like, that's a good time to not get drunk. And I didn't think I did. And the next morning I woke up with my cousin and my friends, and I was like, oh, last night, like, it was pretty good, right? And they're like looking at each other, and I was like, what? And they're like, well, you went back to the bar and like cried on the bar for like 3 hours. And I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm done with people telling me about my life. Like, I need to know what's happening. I don't want to be offline in a bar crying for 3 hours. Like, so literally that morning I drank a mimosa to take the edge off, and I never drank again. And
wow.
Yeah, so that was December 11th of 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have to like change friends or anything? Or
friends
like,
will fall off. That like, you'll realize who your drinking buddies are, right? You'll realize that I thought I was very social, and what I realized in my sobriety is that I just didn't want to drink alone. So people will be like, oh, I haven't seen you in so long, you know? And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't drink anymore. And they're like, well, I don't need to be drunk to be around you. And I'm like, well, I need to be drunk to be around you. Like, we have nothing in common. You know what I mean? Other than we used to drink. So yeah, friends kind of fall out. And then, you know, I went into the program, and you'll meet people there that have like similar experiences, and you get friends that are, you know, fewer friendships, but more meaningful, which I think is something that happens as we age anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
Thank you.
I had alcohol issues. I don't even know if I would classify it as alcoholism. I don't know how to. You know, this is in like early 20s and things. But I started drinking pretty young because I was miserably depressed. And it was like, I had a bit of alcohol and it was like, oh my gosh, the cloud is gone. And I think that I knew my dad had quit drinking, but I knew it was a thing for him because my mom was always saying like, he used to drink like heavily and then he stopped when he was like 27 or something like that, or 28. And he just quit. And I was like, okay, so it's like, okay. I kind of had it like, it's okay that I'm drinking. This isn't like when I was a teenager too. And it made me feel so much better. I don't think I really slowed down until I got like the depression, like I got mentally better. I was definitely using it as a crutch.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. So they say like in the rooms when you're drinking and using, it's like driving a station wagon and throwing every problem in the backseat. Right?
Yeah. It's
and
nice,
then,
kind of.
Yeah. And then when you get, it works. It literally, that's the thing too. I never judge anyone who's in active alcoholism or addiction because I'm just like, it works. It works until it doesn't, you know, but it's like the station wagon analogy is like when you get sober, it's like slamming on the brakes and all that shit comes forward. So you have to get ready to deal with it. Because before I got sober, I didn't think I was depressed. I never had any suicidal ideation. I literally, if you would have asked me, I was great. I was great. I was confident. I was successful. I was happy, healthy, married. Like it was like, I was great. And then I got sober and I was like, oh, I'm not okay. Turns out I was drinking for a reason. So yeah, that was a reckoning. That was like probably the hardest. Yeah. One of the hardest 6 months of my life. Yeah.
Oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. It was an absolute reckoning.
Wow. Well, good for you. Especially to have a career where you're going on stage. Like I don't know, I'm not involved in like the comedy sphere, but I would assume people drink. Like you're on stage in front of a bunch of people, it takes the edge off and things. So
yeah, it's interesting. I think now we're in an era of comedy where there's a lot of sobriety because we've seen like the generation that came before us, right? Like burning out, dying in like really crazy ways. And a lot of it is tied to addiction. And it's like, you know, we're confronted with the choice of like, do we want to live long life? Like, do we want to live long lives or do we want to burn out? You know, like Sam Kinison, like it's. So.
That makes sense.
So yeah, there's a lot of camaraderie and sobriety. There's a lot of sober comics now, which is nice. There's definitely
amazing. I know Theo talks about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. There's a handful of them. So it feels like more of a safe space to be sober now.